This is not just a story. This is the tragic fate of Prophet Zakariya, A.S., and his son. Allah gave them miracles. They stood against the Roman king of Jerusalem, Herod. They spoke the truth. They did not stay silent. They did not step back. They also became the greatest protectors of Isa, A.S., and Maryam. But the price was heavy to S. The evening sun pulled away from the narrow, dusty streets of Jerusalem. The sky turned red. Not only night darkness was spreading over the city, but also a deep spiritual heaviness. In the lands of Judea, under the iron fist of Rome, the children of Israel had become distant from their true essence. They hid the spirit of the Torah behind outward religion and worldly desire. The prayers echoing in the Temple of Solomon were no longer coming from hearts, only from tongues. In this crowded city lived a servant whom no one noticed, but whom the heavens knew very well. His name was Zakariya. He did not dress like kings. He did not live in palaces. Crowds did not follow him. But the angels knew his prayer. Zakariya, S., was a prophet sent to the children of Israel. He lived by the Torah brought by Musa, S. The angel had not yet come. Isa, S. had not yet begun his message. From the outside, the children of Israel looked religious. The temple was standing, worship continued, the Torah was read and written. But hearts were scattered. Obedience had become only a form. Morality had collapsed. Religion had turned into a tool for benefit. Zakariya, A.S., came from the lineage of Harun. His lineage went back to Dud and Suleiman, then to Yaqub and Ibrahim, A.S. But Zakariya did not rely on his lineage. He spent his days in Beit al-Maqdis. He organized sacrifices and guided people in religious matters. In the rest of his time, he picked up a saw because he was a carpenter. Even though he was a prophet, he lived by the work of his own hands. He was a burden to no one. Zakariya, S., spoke gently. His voice was low, but his words were true and heavy. When he reminded the children of Israel of Allah's commands, some listened, but many more turned their faces away. Some openly said, "O Zakariya, mind your own business. Do not interfere with us." At that time, Jerusalem was under political pressure. Power was in the hands of an authority that did not believe in Allah. But the temple was not touched. There seemed to be freedom of worship. This seeming was the biggest trap. Zakariya, as knew this very well. He saw inner decay more than outer pressure. He had no heir to take over this holy trust after him, no one to carry the banner of the mission. He and his wife were nearly 100 years old. Their hair had turned white, their bones weak. By worldly causes, having a child seemed impossible. Zakariya's wife Elisa had a sister. Her name was Hannah. She suffered from the same pain. Both sisters were married, but neither had children. One hot summer day, Zakariya, S., noticed that Hannah was in a strange state of urgency. She had raised her hands to the sky and was praying with tears, "Give me a child, Ya Allah." At that moment, while Hannah was praying under a tree, her eyes caught something. A bird had food in its beak and was carrying it to its nest. The small chicks were making soft sounds. The mother bird went back and forth without getting tired, feeding her young. Tears flowed from Hannah's eyes, and she repeated her prayer. "O Allah, if you give me a child, I will dedicate the child to you. Let the child serve in Beit al-Maqdis in your path." When Zakariya heard these words, he thought Hannah was asking for a boy, because only boys were dedicated to Beit al-Maqdis. But Allah's plan was different. After some time passed, Hannah's face began to smile. She realized that she was pregnant. She was full of joy. Her husband Imran was also very happy. Imran was a respected man among the children of Israel. He was finally going to be a father. But destiny was written differently. Imran did not live to see the birth of his child. He became ill and passed away. When the day of birth came, fear entered Hannah's heart. The pains began, midwives gathered, and finally that moment arrived, a baby girl. Hannah's face turned pale. "But I dedicated her to Beit al-Maqdis," she said, crying. "I wanted a boy. Girls are not taken into the temple." At that moment, she said the blessed words that would later be mentioned in the Quran. Hannah continued, "I named her Maryam, and I ask you to protect her and her descendants from the rejected shaitan." Zakariya looked at the baby, so small, so delicate, so innocent. Who could have known that this child would become the means for one of the greatest miracles in history? Days passed. Miriam's mother Hannah did not turn back from her promise. "I made a promise to Allah. I will keep that promise," she said. She took little Miriam in her arms and set out toward Beit al-Maqdis. Zakariya, was there. The religious leaders gathered. A girl? This had never happened before. The discussion began. A girl had never been accepted to serve in the temple before. But this was the daughter of Imran. They wondered if she could be accepted for his sake. In truth, deep inside, each of them wanted to take care of this precious baby and raise their own status through her. Zakariya, stepped forward. His voice was calm but firm. "The aunt of this child is my wife. By family right, she belongs to me. I will take responsibility for her." The other religious leaders objected. "No, the daughter of Imran is very valuable. This honor should belong to all of us." After hours of argument, they made a decision. They would draw lots. Each man would throw the pen he used to write the Torah into the river. Whoever's pen stayed on the surface of the water would be given the care of Miriam. They went to the bank of the Jordan River. 29 religious men lined up. One by one, they threw their pens into the river. Zakariya also threw his pen. And at that moment, a miracle happened. All the pens sank into the water. Only Zakariya's pen stayed on the surface. According to some reports, while the other pens sank, his pen not only stayed afloat but also shone. People watched in shock. This was a clear sign. Allah had chosen Zakariya. The ambitious rivals objected one more time. They repeated the draw 3 times. Each time, the result was the same. When Zakariya took the pen out of the water, he understood that this was not only a duty of care. Allah was placing a great secret and a heavy test into his hands. Zakariya placed Miriam in the highest part of the temple, in a room where no one could enter without permission. The mihrab, a high ladder, was needed to reach it, and the key was only with Zakariya. Every day he brought her food and personally took care of her education. But one day, when he entered the room, what he saw would change everything in Zakariya's life. In front of Miriam were fruits that could not exist in that season or in that land. Fresh summer figs in the middle of winter. Cool winter fruits in the heat of summer. Zakariya asked in amazement, "Oh, Miriam, where does this come from? The door is locked. The key is with me. No one enters here except me." Miriam's answer struck the old prophet's heart like lightning. "This is from Allah. Surely Allah gives provision to whom he wills without measure." At that moment, Zakariya understood. When causes end, the owner of causes steps in. If Allah could send fruits out of season to a young girl, then he could also give a child out of season to a 100-year-old man and a barren woman. Zakariya left the mihrab, his hands trembling. He was no longer only the guardian of Miriam. He was now preparing to make his most private dua to his Lord, as someone asking for the impossible. That day, Zakariya raised his hands to the sky, but not loudly. Quietly, inside himself, in secret, as the Quran describes it, Nidun Kafiya. "My Lord, I fear those who will come after me. I want my line to continue. My wife is barren and I am old. But you are able to do everything. Grant me a son from yourself, your rabbi. Let him inherit from me and from the family of Jacob, and make him pleasing to you." Then he said this sentence, the blessed sentence that teaches us how to pray. "My Lord, when I called upon you, you never turned me away empty-handed." A sincere dua made with tears would surely be answered in the heavens. That evening, when he returned to the temple, he stood in the mihrab to pray. Hands were raised. His forehead touched the ground. And at that moment, he heard a voice. "O Zakariya." He lifted his head. In front of him stood a being of light. "Jibril." "O Zakariya, Allah gives you good news. We give you the good news of a son named Yahya. We have never given this name to anyone before." Zakariya felt as if his heart would stop. He could not believe what he heard. Yahya? Yes, he will confirm a word from Allah. That is, he will confirm Isa. He will be a leader among his people. He will control his desires. He will be a righteous prophet. With a trembling voice, Zakariya asked, "My wife is barren, and I have reached the furthest limit of old age. How can I have a son?" The answer came with great certainty. "It will be so. Your Lord says, 'This is easy for me. I created you before, when you were nothing.'" And the angel disappeared. Zakariya remained there, frozen in the mihrab. He had prayed, and his prayer had been accepted. The fruits given to Miriam out of season had taught him this. Allah is not in need of causes. He says be, and it is. And now a man of 99 years would become a father, as a human being. Zakariya, yes, asked Allah for a sign to face this great miracle. "My Lord, give me a sign," he said. Allah said, "Your sign is this. Although you are healthy, you will not be able to speak to people for 3 days. During this time, remember your Lord often and glorify him morning and evening." The next morning, when Zakariya came out of the mihrab, the people of Jerusalem and the servants of the temple were waiting for him. He did not speak. As people looked at him in surprise, they finally understood that Zakariya had entered a fast of silence. For 3 days, Zakariya's tongue was silent, but his heart was remembering Allah like a flowing river. The out-of-season fruits he had seen in Miriam's room were now growing in his own life. Just as Miriam, the daughter of Imran, was there as a gift from Allah, now Yahya was coming to his own home to relight the prophetic light that was about to fade in the corrupted streets of Jerusalem. As the months passed, rumors and dark whispers in Jerusalem began to grow. Some corrupted rabbis saw the extraordinary situation in Zakariya's home as a threat. "How can a child be born at this age?" they said. "Is there magic in this? Or is Zakariya deceiving us?" Their hearts had become so hard that they had long forgotten the secret in Allah's command. When the time was complete and the moment of birth arrived, it is said that a bright star appeared in the sky. The baby placed in Elisa's arms was not only a child, but good news of an oasis for a community that had turned into a desert. Zakariya looked at the small baby in his arms. In the baby's eyes, there seemed to be deep wisdom and a quiet sadness, as if from 1,000 years. He called him from his heart by the name Allah himself had given, Yahya, meaning the living one, the one who gives life, the one who brings dead hearts back to life. As days passed, Yahya grew, but he was not an ordinary child. Even as a baby, he was different. He did not cry much. He was a peaceful baby. His eyes looked as if they understood everything. While all this was happening, Miriam's greatest test was about to begin. Miriam was on the eastern side of Beit al-Maqdis, in a quiet and empty place. She had come to take water for ablution. She was about to fill her water container when a strange feeling suddenly filled her heart. She turned around. In front of her, she saw a young man. She stepped back in fear. Who are you?" Miriam said, her voice shaking. "Do not be afraid," the being said. His voice was gentle and calming. "I am the messenger of your Lord. I have been sent to grant you a pure son." Miriam's heart began to beat fast. "How can I have a son?" she said in panic. "No man has touched me. I am a chaste woman." Jibril replied calmly, "Your Lord says, 'This is easy for me. We will make him a sign for people and a mercy from us. This is a matter already decided." And at that moment, Jibril's task was completed. We breathed our spirit into her. Jibril disappeared. Miriam was left there, completely alone. One hand went to her stomach. There was nothing yet, but she knew. Allah's command had already taken place. She was crying. Was it fear? Was it joy? Both. Allah had chosen her. This was a great honor. But the people, the children of Israel, what would they say? Days passed. Miriam now felt the command she was carrying inside her. There was a change in her body and a heavy secret in her heart. This secret could not be hidden from people, and Miriam understood. She could not stay there. She prepared quietly, without telling anyone. She left Beit al-Maqdis. As the Quran says, she withdrew to a distant place with her child. There was no farewell, no explanation, only taking refuge in Allah. She knew what people would say. The children of Israel were not merciful. They were ready to accuse. But Allah's command was heavy, and Miriam would carry this burden alone. As the birth came closer, the loneliness grew deeper. Under a palm tree, bent over in pain, these words fell from her lips. I wish I had died before this and been forgotten. But Allah did not leave her alone. After the birth, she would return with the child in her arms. And then the real test would begin. She came to her people carrying the child in her arms. The crowd stopped for a moment. Then the words became harsh. "O Miriam, you have done a very ugly thing. O sister of Harun, your father was not a bad man, and your mother was not immoral." Meaning, these words were not a question. They were a clear accusation. Miriam did not speak, because she knew the command of her Lord. She only pointed to the child in her arms. The crowd was shocked. "How can we speak to a baby in the cradle?" they said. And at that moment, the baby spoke. "Indeed, I am the servant of Allah. He gave me the book and made me a prophet. Wherever I am, He made me blessed. As long as I live, He commanded me with salat and zakat. He commanded me to be good to my mother, and He did not make me cruel or miserable. Peace be upon me the day I was born, the day I will die, and the day I will be raised again." The crowd froze. These words were not the words of a baby. They were not a mother's defense. This was the proof of Allah. But not every heart softened. The fitna did not end. There was silence for a while, then whispers began. "This is magic. This is a trick. Can there be a child without a father?" Even if it could not be spoken openly, the slander continued to move in the darkness. The proof had come, but pride had not left. Because of this, Ibn Maryam and his mother Maryam had to stay away from people's eyes. This was not an escape, but a divine protection that a baby had spoken in front of the people. Yet the same people could throw stones the next day. In this atmosphere, Yahya was growing. Yahya ibn Zakariya was not like children who played in the streets. At a very young age, he took the path of the temple. It was not play that attracted him, but prostration. As the Quran says, "We gave him wisdom while he was still a child. When he was 7 years old, his mother Elisa passed away. Her old body could not endure anymore, but her heart was at peace. Allah had given her a child in her old age. Zakariya, while carving cedar wood in his workshop, was also shaping his son beside him. As soon as Yahya's tongue was loosened, the Torah settled into his heart. In the evenings, they walked among the columns of Beit al-Maqdis. Against the spiritual darkness falling over Jerusalem, they were like two silent torches. When Yahya reached the age of 10, he became a Zahid. He wore wool, ate little, and worshipped much. His closest friend was Allah. When he reached the age of 12, he was no longer a child. The command of the Quran had come. "O Yahya, hold firmly to the book." Now in Jerusalem, two voices were rising, one old and dignified, one young but shaking hearts. According to Islamic historians, the return of Isa and Maryam to Jerusalem happened around the same time that Yahya was chosen as a prophet. Yahya became a prophet at a very young age, around 12 years old, and before Isa. It is narrated that there was about 6 months between them. Isa would become a prophet at the age of 30, meaning 18 years after Yahya's prophethood. One evening, when Zakariya came home, he found Yahya crying. The young prophet was crushed under the sins of his people. Zakariya held his son's hand. In each other's eyes, the two prophets saw their own endings, and the endless mercy of Allah. As the truth began to echo again inside the cities, oppression also began to listen. And so the stage was set once more. On one side, Yahya calling out the truth. On the other, a storm slowly approaching. The fog over Jerusalem was not only physical darkness. It was also a sign of an approaching storm. Zakariya carved the hard cedar wood in his workshop. Every strike carried remembrance. Every wood shaving carried reflection. Yahya, now a young man, often stayed away from the hardened crowds, busy with remembering Allah and worship. That time, the person holding power in Jerusalem was Herod Antipas. He was a ruler appointed by Rome. He had a throne, but his will was limited. He had authority, but no true legitimacy. To Herod's palace looked magnificent from the outside, but inside it was rotten. This decay was not a single sin. It was the corruption of an entire system. The Torah was used only as much as power needed it. Halal and haram were shaped according to the palace. Oppression existed, but it had no name. Most religious leaders remained silent, because silence was the price of survival. It was exactly in this atmosphere that a voice rose. No one expected it. That voice belonged to Yehya ibn Zakariya. When he spoke, his words touched the inside of people. He did not only remind people to worship, he named what was wrong. He did not hide oppression behind beautiful words. He did not make haram lawful through power. He did not bend the truth to fit the majority. And he did the most dangerous thing of all. He exposed the sins of those in power. This exposure was not about one single issue. Yehya stood against the fake alliance between the palace and religion, the use of the Torah as a political tool, the silence of the people, the normalization of sin. But among all this corruption, there was one face that everyone could clearly see. Everyone knew it, but no one dared to say it. An unlawful relationship. This was not the whole problem, but it was the most visible proof. And Yehya chose this point on purpose, because this was a language the people understood. Point one day, he stopped speaking indirectly. He did not hide his words. He did not avoid names. This is not halal for you. This sentence was not just moral advice. This sentence was against the palace, against power, against silence. It was a sentence spoken to a regime. The words reached the palace quickly. Herod heard them. Then he heard them again. And for the first time, he felt this. This young man was dangerous because behind Yehya, there was no army, no weapons, no money, but there was the conscience of the people, divine legitimacy, a tongue that did not step back. Herod did not act immediately because cowards wait first. Killing Yehya was not easy. The people loved him. Touching him could start a rebellion. They tried another way. They tried to discredit him. He speaks too harshly. He goes too far. He causes chaos. He disturbs the balance. But did Yehya become silent? No, in every speech, he repeated this. Haram does not become halal through power. Oppression does not become reward by sitting on a throne. These words darkened Herod's nights, because as long as Yehya was alive, he knew he would never be at peace. And so the first major decision was made. Yehya would not be killed, not yet, but he would be silenced. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that Allah Ta'ala gave Yehya, 5 commands. He was ordered to follow them himself, and also to command the children of Israel to follow them. But for a certain reason, Yehya, delayed delivering this message. Then Isa said to him, My brother, Allah has given you 5 commands, that you follow them and that you command the children of Israel to follow them as well. Either you convey these commands to them, or if you allow me, I will convey them on your behalf. Yehya, replied, My brother, if you deliver them before me, I fear that I will be punished for neglecting my duty, or that the earth will swallow me. So I will fulfill my responsibility myself. After this, Yehya, gathered all the children of Israel in Beit al-Maqdis. When a masjid was filled with people, he sat in a high place. After praising Allah, he said, Allah has commanded me with 5 things, and I have been ordered to follow them myself, and to command you to follow them as well. First, worship Allah alone, and do not associate anything with him. Second, perform salat, because while a servant is in salat, Allah turns his attention and mercy toward that servant, as long as the servant does not turn his gaze away. So do not look around during salat. Third, fast. The example of the one who fasts is like a person among a group who carries a bag of musk. Everyone around enjoys its smell. And truly, the smell from the mouth of a fasting person is purer with Allah than the smell of musk. Fourth, give tzedakah. The example of the one who gives tzedakah is like a man captured by enemies. They tie his hands to his neck and prepare to execute him. He says, If I give you a ransom, will you free me? Then he gives all his wealth and saves himself. Fifth, remember Allah often. The example of the one who remembers Allah is like a man being chased quickly by an enemy. He takes refuge in a strong fortress and saves himself. Truly, a person protects himself from shaitan by taking refuge through the remembrance of Allah. When Herod spread the immoral and shameless culture of Rome into Jewish society, adultery, prostitution, nudity, indecency, and corruption began to be encouraged by the state itself. Herod himself was a man living in sin. Prophet Yahya S. began to openly oppose his sinful and immoral behavior. When the ruler realized that his position was in danger, he arrested Prophet Yahya S. and threw him into prison. There was no court, no accusation, only an order, and that order was not from Rome. It was the order of fear. The dungeon was beneath Jerusalem, between stone walls, a place where almost no light entered. There was dampness, there was cold, there was silence. But for Yahya, this was not new. He was never deeply attached to this world. When Yahya ibn Zakariya entered the prison, he knew one thing. This was a test, but it was not his first test. Even there, he was not silenced. Even there, he did not step back. His words may no longer have echoed in the streets, but dua, daikr, and truth were still rising from behind stone walls. News reached Herod. He is not speaking, but he is not given up. He is not stepping back. He has not taken back his words. These sentences hit Herod's ears like a hammer. Herod Antipas sat on his throne, but he was not at peace. Wine was poured. Music was played. Laughter filled the palace. But in Herod's mind, there was only one voice. This is not halal for you. He wanted to silence this voice. But throwing Yahya into prison was not enough, because Yahya was no longer just a man. He had become a mirror. And when Herod looked into that mirror, he saw an illegitimate power, a religion bent to serve authority, a silenced conscience. And he hated it. But at the same time, he was afraid to kill Yahya. This was a step with no return, because Herod knew this. If he killed Yahya, he would prove Yahya right. Herod was not alone. Whispers moved through the palace. As long as this man lives, there will be no peace. The people see him as a prophet. Today Yahya, tomorrow you. These words were the voice of fear. And fear is the most convincing thing. Those around Herod saw Yahya as a threat because Yahya did not compromise, did not remain silent, could not be bought. And this was the most dangerous type for power. Sometimes Herod woke up in the middle of the night. He thought about the prison, about that young prophet. Should I release him? Would he take back his words? But then another question came to his mind. What if he doesn't? That possibility was heavier than all others. One night, the palace was crowded again. Music again. Wine again. But this time, Herod's heart was darker. The pressure around the palace had increased. This is taking too long. This man will destroy you. Today you imprison him. Tomorrow they judge you. And Herod understood. This was no longer a matter of Yahya. This was a matter of the throne. That night, the decision was made. This decision was not made with courage, nor with justice. It was made with fear. When Yahya was taken out of the dungeon, the night was silent. The sky stood still as if nothing was happening. But history was changing direction at that very moment. There was no fear on Yahya's lips. No anger, no regret, only surrender. As told in Islamic tradition, Yahya was martyred, not because of a crime, not because of betrayal, only for one reason, because he did not take back the truth. That night, Herod thought he slept in peace. One voice had been silenced, but there was something he did not understand. The voice may have stopped, but the truth did not. Yahya was no longer speaking, but Yahya had become immortal. About this, the Quran says, "Indeed, those who deny the signs of Allah, kill the prophets unjustly, and kill those who command justice among people. Give them glad tidings of a painful punishment." In Jerusalem, even the stones were uneasy. The martyrdom of Yahya, had changed the air. The blood of a prophet does not remain silent. Zakariya, knew this. His son was gone. The answer to his dua had returned to his Lord. But Zakariya was still alive, and this was unacceptable for the oppressors. Now the name of Zakariya, A.S., was spoken openly, not in whispers. Yehia's father, the root of this matter. He must be silenced too. Zakariya did not run away, but he hid. This hiding was not from fear. It was staying away from what could not be carried. It was the way of the prophets. He entered a garden near Beit al-Maqdis, where the trees were dense. His heart was calm, because he felt where his destiny was flowing. According to the Islamic historian Ibn Kathir, when Zakariya, A.S., came near a tree, the tree split open. This was not an ordinary scene. It was Allah opening a final curtain for his servant. The tree took him inside and it closed. Zakariya, A.S., was no longer visible. But being unseen does not mean being unreachable. When the oppressors reached the garden, they could not find Zakariya. They became angry. They searched. They could not find him. And at that moment, Shaitan stepped in. The edge of a garment is sticking out of the tree. "Cut this tree," said Shaitan. "If he is inside, you'll catch him. If not, you lose nothing." This sentence is one of those that opened the door to many acts of oppression in history, because inside it, there is not doubt but cruelty. The saw was pulled. The wood groaned. But Zakariya, A.S., made no sound, because he had already passed the place of speaking to a T that moment. A prophet was meeting his Lord. The tree split into two, and Zakariya, A.S., was martyred. This was not just a death. It was a people speeding up their own end. The oppressors thought they had one. Another prophet had been silenced. But in the heavens, a different record was being written, because Allah does not leave the blood of his prophets on the ground. The life of Zakariya, as ended here, but his story did not. He gave his son in the way of Allah. He gave his life in the way of Allah. And he left behind a lesson that would cross generations. Some stories exist like this. They are told through three people, but they meet in a single meaning. Zakariya, Yahya, Maryam. All three walked similar paths. All three lived similar pain. And all three reached the same place: surrender. The story of Zakariya, A.S., began with dua, quiet, hidden, without showing off. Even when he asked Allah, he held himself back. He was a prophet who asked with deep respect. He knew what he was asking for was impossible, but he knew even better that Allah knows no impossibility. And in the end, he received what he asked for, but Allah did not give him only a child. He gave him a chain of tests. First Yahya, then the martyrdom of Yahya, then his own martyrdom. The life of Zakariya teaches us this. Sometimes when Allah accepts a dua, he also gives its price. And that price raises the rank of the servant. Yahya, A.S., was the answer to his father's dua, but he was the owner of his own destiny. He could have stayed silent. He could have lived. He could have stepped back. But he did not, because Yahya knew this. When you see the truth, staying silent is also a lie. His martyrdom did not come suddenly. It came step by step. First, he was isolated. Then they tried to silence him. In the end, they killed him. But the death of Yahya was not a defeat. By dying, he declared this: if the price of speaking the truth is death, then that price is paid. And this became a cry that crossed generations. Maryam spoke very little, but she became the most spoken about. She was slandered. She was left alone. She was pushed out by society. But she did not defend herself. Maryam stayed silent. And her baby spoke for her by Allah's will. This was a scene the human mind cannot carry. But sometimes Allah takes the defense away from his servant and does it himself. Zakariya protected Maryam, but in the end, he handed her over to Allah because Maryam's destiny was no longer something humans could carry. The common point of all three: Zakariya did not speak, but he made dua. Yahya spoke, but he did not step back. Maryam stayed silent, but the truth spoke. All three did this. They did not interfere with Allah's plan. This is the hardest form of surrender, because sometimes a person wants to defend even what he knows is right. But Allah says, wait. Zakariya waited. Yahya resisted. Maryam stayed silent. And each of them did what was right in their own place. Zakariya, did not leave wealth. He did not leave a palace. He did not leave a name. But he left a legacy. respect in dua, steadfastness in truth, depth in surrender. His story tells us this. Trusting Allah is not seeing the result. Trusting Allah is leaving the result to Him. And this story does not end here, because now one question must be asked. What does this story say to us today? What Zakariya, Yahya, and Miriam lived through? How does it look at today? First lesson, a place where there is no despair. Zakariya was 99 years old. His wife was 98 years old and barren. According to all causes, having a child was impossible. Médicalement, logicalement, physically impossible. But he did not lose hope. When he saw the out-of-season fruits in Miriam's room, he understood this. Allah does not need causes. He says all, and it happens. And he made dua, quietly, sincerely with